My name was Idris. I was a Crown Prosecutor, a proud Muslim, respected in London's courtrooms, my life guided by the rigorous tenets of my faith. By 35, I wore my honor like armor, navigating the complexities of justice through a lens shaped by decades of belief. But beneath that facade, an emptiness gnawed at my spirit, a profound disconnect that grew louder with each prayer I offered, each case I presented. The questions lingered like shadows. Did I truly understand the divine? Then came the day my life changed forever. The courtroom was tense, wrapped in silence as I presented a complex case, and in that moment of pressure, the weight of doubt became unbearable. I collapsed. In my darkest hour, I found myself in a void, surrounded by nothingness, until a radiant light shattered the darkness. It was Jesus, calling my name with a love so fierce that every fiber of my being resonated with truth. He didn't come to challenge my faith. He came to unveil a war one had never known existed. A spiritual conflict interwoven with the very fabric of my world, showing me the chains of religion I had mistakenly believed were my freedom. Suddenly, the veils of deception began to drop, revealing how fear and control had kept me in line, both as a prosecutor and as a man of faith. It became clear I had been serving a system rather than the God I thought I knew. As I returned to consciousness, I realized I wasn't just battling isolation from my family and community. I was grappling with a divine calling. It propelled me into a journey fraught with peril and doubt, as the truth pressed me forward, urging me to share this revelation with others who remain trapped in the same darkness. This is where my story takes a sharp turn. It's not just a tale of personal awakening. It's a call to action for those who have faced their own crises of faith. In a world rife with confusion, I learned that the quest for truth often comes with a cost, but it also leads to the most profound freedom. So as we embark on this journey together, I ask you, where are you watching from? And what time is it right now in your corner of the world? Your location matters. And if you too yearn for truth, I invite you to subscribe to Truth from Beyond. Join us as we explore revelations that transcend boundaries, for the journey towards understanding is just beginning. Standing in that London courtroom, where the weight of time and history pressed down around us, I felt an overwhelming tension in the air. My name is Farid Al-Mansour, and as a Crown Prosecutor, I had spent years entrenched in the legal system, navigating the delicate interplay between Islamic culture and British traditions. But that day, as I presented my case, an unsettling wave of doubt surged within me. My community expected me to uphold our values. Yet as I stood before the jury, I couldn't shake the growing disconnection I felt from my faith. It was as if the very walls of the court held their breath, echoing the silent questions swirling in my mind. The deeper I delved into the intricacies of the case, the more I felt the weight of expectation conflicting with my spiritual journey. I had always believed in seeking justice, yet the rigidity of my religious obligations began to feel like a heavy burden. Each verse I recited in my prayers felt increasingly distant, devoid of the connection I had long cherished. Each decision I made in the courtroom came with a cost, and I was left wondering if I was truly serving justice or simply perpetuating a system that often masked its own deceptions. This internal struggle reached a boiling point as I realized that adhering to societal norms sometimes came at the expense of deeper truths. Then, something unexpected happened. In the midst of presenting my arguments, I felt a wave of dizziness wash over me. My surroundings blurred, and in an instant, I found myself enveloped in blinding light. It was as if a door had swung wide open, transporting me to another realm. In this place, I encountered Jesus, his presence radiating warmth and love. He called my name, and I felt an immediate sense of belonging, as if every doubt and fear I had ever harbored melted away. In those precious moments, he began to share profound revelations, illuminating the deeper truths of existence that had been hidden from me. Jesus unveiled the nature of the spiritual war that raged within and around us. He showed me how the elite manipulate narratives, fostering division and deception in society. I witnessed the hidden agendas that orchestrate conflicts, influencing hearts and minds to maintain their control. The war wasn't just fought on battlefields. It permeated every aspect of our lives, conducted through the very beliefs we held dear. Each revelation hit me with a sense of urgency, compelling me to confront the lies woven into the very fabric of our existence. I understood then that it was not merely my own liberation I had to seek, but collective awakening, the calling to rise against the forces that sought to keep us divided and fearful. As I was pulled back into consciousness, the cacophony of the courtroom returned, but now I carried a new understanding. The struggle to reconcile my faith with the reality of the world around me felt like an inevitable part of my journey. I was no longer just a prosecutor. I was a messenger, equipped with the truth that Jesus had revealed. My experience became a clarion call, urging me to step into the light, to share what I had seen, and to inspire others caught in their own cycles of deception. I felt an overwhelming responsibility to speak out, to awaken not just my own community, but all who were yearning for understanding amid confusion and chaos. I was determined to embrace this mission, ready to confront fears and resist the tides of societal pressure, committed to spreading the truth and fostering genuine connections that could transcend division. Each day I walked into the courthouse, I presented myself as Idris, a disciplined and well-dressed Crown Prosecutor. On the outside, I appeared composed, confident in my abilities to navigate the complexities of the legal system. But beneath that polished exterior, I grappled with a profound spiritual void that seemed to grow deeper by the day. I was raised in a devout Muslim family, imbued with the principles of faith and duty. Yet, as I stood before the judge and jury, articulating arguments that I had spent countless hours crafting, I couldn't escape the haunting feeling that something was missing. The conflict between my obedience to my faith and the emotional fulfillment I craved loomed over me like a storm cloud. Each prayer felt more like an obligation than a source of strength, and I often wondered if I was simply going through the motions. My time spent in prayer, while meaningful, was fraught with disconnection as I struggled to find the depth of spirituality that had once ignited my soul. I felt pressure to embody the ideals expected of me, but that pressure often morphed into an overwhelming burden. Every aspect of my life felt shackled by expectations that stifled my true self. Then came the day everything changed. During a pivotal moment in jury selection, as I addressed the court, I suddenly felt lightheaded, a disorienting wave that left me grasping for stability. I remember stumbling slightly, disoriented, before collapsing. As consciousness slipped away from me, I found myself in a space filled with unimaginable light, separate from the confines of my reality. In that sacred moment, I encountered Jesus. His presence was palpable, radiating an unconditional love that enveloped me. He called my name, and every doubt and fear I had ever stored within me began to dissolve. In that divine encounter, Jesus opened my eyes to truths I had never before understood. He revealed the hidden agendas that shaped our world, how the elite manipulate information and sow division among the people. I was shown the devastating effects of the ongoing spiritual war, how society is ensnared in a cycle of deception that keeps individuals from awakening to their true potential. Each revelation struck me with urgency, illuminating the ways in which I had unknowingly become part of a system that perpetuated fear and misunderstanding. The idea of blindly adhering to doctrine without seeking the underlying truth began to evaporate, replaced by a compelling desire to challenge the narratives that constrained me. When I awoke, the courtroom had returned to its cold reality, but I was forever changed. The experience transformed my understanding of faith and purpose. No longer could I confine myself to the narrow expectations of my background. I felt a deep responsibility to share the truth I had encountered with others. The fear of backlash from my community was daunting, but the urgency of the message I carried overshadowed those concerns. I realized that to stand steadfast in the face of this spiritual war, I had to use my voice to advocate for justice, not just in the courtroom, but in the lives of those who felt lost and misled. Emboldened by this revelation, I began to seek connections with like-minded individuals who were also questioning the status quo. I found solace in online communities and gatherings where the stories of awakening flowed freely. Each testimony affirmed my resolve and reminded me of the profound longing we all share for truth and connection. I prepared to confront the challenges ahead, eager to help others not just find their own paths to awakening, but unite to challenge the hidden agendas that continue to manipulate our lives. The journey ahead was fraught with obstacles, but I embraced it with a heart full of hope and a spirit ignited by the understanding that the power of truth could change lives, mine included. As I prepared for another day in the courtroom as a Crown Prosecutor, the weight of my responsibilities felt heavier than ever. My name is Idris, and I'm known for my discipline and commitment to justice. Yet beneath my professional facade, a growing sense of disconnection lingered. It started in my private prayers, where I sought solace and guidance, but increasingly felt a chasm between my words and my spirit. Each invocation felt empty, echoing off the walls of my conviction without resonating in my heart. In the busy halls of the Old Bailey, where justice and tradition collided, I couldn't help but wrestle with doubts about my faith. The complexity of the cases I handled only added to the pressure. High-profile trials ensnared me in a web of ethical quandaries that perpetuated my internal struggle. I often stood before the jury passionately presenting my arguments, yet felt a creeping sense of hypocrisy. I was devoted to the laws of Britain, yet the rigid structures of my faith began to feel confining. I questioned whether adherence to such dogma served the greater good, or was simply a tool employed by those in power to maintain control. Did my faith support the truth, or was it manipulating my spirit? These questions festered, planting seeds of doubt that grew with each passing prayer. Then, one fateful day, everything shifted. While presenting a particularly complex case, I experienced an unnerving wave of dizziness that took me by surprise. The room spun, the faces around me blurred, and as I collapsed, I was thrust into darkness. In that terrifying moment, I transitioned into a realm illuminated by an intense light. There, I encountered Jesus, his presence wrapping around me like a warm embrace. His voice cut through the confusion, calling my name, and in that moment of divine clarity, I felt all my burdens lift away. It was as if he was reaching into the depths of my soul, unearthing the layers of fear and doubt that had been buried too deep for too long. In his light, revelations unfolded before me. Jesus began to reveal the hidden agendas at play in our society, how the elite manipulated information and systems to keep the masses divided and blind. I witnessed the deception that permeated the world around me, a manipulation that not only affected politics, but also altered the very fabric of our humanity. The spiritual war that had silently waged was laid bare, and I understood that the conflicts we faced daily were rooted in misguided beliefs and a profound disconnect from the truth. Each insight struck me like lightning, igniting a fierce urgency within me to awaken others to the reality of their own situations. When I eventually awoke, I found myself back in the courtroom, gasping and disoriented, but forever changed. The walls felt both familiar and foreign, and a fire burned within me, urging me to act. I understood that my experience was not merely for my own enlightenment, but a call to serve those around me. There was so much work to do to help others break free from the chains of deception and discover the truth that Jesus had shown me. My heart raced at the thought of the personal risks involved, especially confronting the expectations of my family and community. Yet the urge to share my message, to guide others toward their own awakening, was a responsibility I could no longer ignore. With each moment that passed, I became more determined to embrace this mission, ready to encourage those trapped in confusion to join the movement toward liberation and understanding. In the midst of a critical moment in the courtroom, as I stood to deliver my arguments, I felt a wave of dizziness wash over me. My heart raced as the tension in the air thickened, and I could sense the expectations of the jury, the judge, and even my own colleagues weighing down upon me. My name is Idris, a Crown Prosecutor immersed in the legal proceedings of life, yet at that moment, everything around me began to fade. The familiar sounds of the courtroom became muffled as darkness enveloped me, leading to an unexpected, terrifying experience, a near-death encounter that would redefine my understanding of everything I believed. Suddenly, in the darkness, I found myself in a vast, dimly lit space. I felt disoriented, but then a warmth began to break through the shadows. An illuminating light approached, and I heard a voice calling my name. It was Jesus. His presence radiated an extraordinary love and acceptance, transcending the very limitations I had placed on my understanding of faith. As he stepped closer, I felt all my fears and insecurities fall away, replaced by a sense of peace and clarity that I had never known. In that sacred moment, I realized I was not just being called, I was being awakened. Jesus began to reveal the truth behind the spiritual war that had raged around me, illuminating the hidden agendas orchestrated by the elite. I saw how societal structures were intricately designed to manipulate and deceive, how we, as individuals, had been led astray by our own beliefs and fears. The revelation struck with the force of a tempest, and I understood that the deception permeating our lives was deliberate, meant to keep us shackled to ignorance and division. I witnessed the chaos created by leaders wielding power and spreading narratives that perpetuate hatred and confusion, all while cloaking themselves in the guise of authority. In this moment of revelation, I was flooded with urgency. Jesus conveyed the importance of awakening, of rising above the distractions that had been planted in our minds by those in control. He emphasized that my journey had a purpose far greater than my personal beliefs. I was called to share my story, to ignite a fire of truth in others, and guide them toward their own awakenings. There was a weight to this mission that I felt deeply. It was not merely about faith, but about confronting the very systems that oppressed so many. The spiritual war was not just an abstract concept, it was a fierce reality demanding our engagement. When I awoke, gasping for air in the courtroom, the familiar surroundings felt foreign. My heart was racing, but now it surged with a new vigor and purpose. The experience I had undergone was not just a fleeting moment, it had become a cornerstone of my existence. I couldn't return to business as usual to simply argue cases without acknowledging the greater truths I now carried. The urge to speak out grew stronger every day, compelling me to rise above my fears and the potential backlash from my community and family. I knew that stepping forward would not come without sacrifice, but the urgency of my calling was a fire I could not ignore. With each passing moment, I became increasingly resolved to embrace my mission, sharing the truths I had received from Jesus and encouraging others to join this journey of awakening. When I awoke from that life-changing experience, the sensation was both liberating and isolating. I was Idris al-Mansour, a Crown Prosecutor, known for my sharp legal mind and relentless pursuit of justice. Yet, now I felt an overwhelming disconnection from the very people I had once felt so close to. My family and colleagues, those who had celebrated my successes, now seemed distant. Their faces reflected confusion and disappointment, as if they could sense the transformation I had undergone and were struggling to accept it. The fear of losing their love weighed heavily on my heart, creating a chasm between my newfound understanding and the world I had left behind. In the days that followed, I grappled with feelings of guilt and loneliness. My attempts to share my experience and the truths I had uncovered about the spiritual war we were all fighting were met with skepticism and, in many cases, outright rejection. They could not see the revelation that had opened my eyes to the hidden agendas that so often manipulated our lives, how the elite used deception to maintain power and divide us. Instead, I was branded as a traitor to my faith, a heretic diverging from the beliefs that had been my bedrock. Each encounter with family or friends became a painful reminder of my isolation, a reminder that I was standing on the fringe of both my community and my identity. Despite the burgeoning light of truth within me, the shadows of fear constantly encroached. The familiar prayers that had once filled me with comfort now echoed hollowly in my mind. I felt like a vessel adrift in a stormy sea, wrestling with my conscience. Should I speak up and risk further alienation, or remain silent and suppress the truth for the sake of acceptance? The internal conflict only grew more intense as the spiritual war raged on both outside in the world and within my own heart. In those quiet moments of reflection, I turned to Jesus, pouring out my feelings of confusion and loneliness. I discovered an extraordinary sense of comfort in private prayer, feeling His presence guide me, reassuring me that my journey was not in vain. Each prayer became an act of defiance, a declaration of my commitment to seek and spread the truth despite the consequences. It was a reminder that even in the face of overwhelming challenges, I had been given a mission to help others awaken, to pull back the veil of deception that kept them shackled in fear and doubt. As I ventured further into this new spiritual landscape, I connected with online communities, engaging with those who shared similar experiences. Together we began to weave a tapestry of understanding that transcended cultural boundaries. Our conversations were rich with urgency and depth, revealing the interconnectedness of our struggles. I listened to their stories of awakening, and in each narrative I found threads of my own. I realized that this journey was not just mine, it was a collective awakening, a movement rising against the forces that sought to keep humanity trapped in darkness. My heart raced with hope, reminding me that despite the painful distance from my family, there was a greater purpose at play, a purpose that called for courage, love, and a relentless pursuit of the truth. The path ahead was fraught with uncertainty, but I felt ready to embrace the challenges, armed with the revelations that had changed my life forever. In the wake of my family's rejection, I felt an overwhelming sense of isolation settling over me. My name is Idris, and as a Crown Prosecutor, my life had been marked by discipline and a commitment to justice. Yet, despite the exterior I presented, I couldn't shake the feeling of emptiness that gnawed at my soul. The encounter with Jesus had ignited a spark within me, but in my community, speaking about such experiences was met with scorn. The pressure to conform to the expectations of my faith and culture felt suffocating. It became clear that to embrace my awakening would mean stepping away from the identities that had previously defined me. I began to seek refuge in the shadows, secretly studying the Bible at night when the world was quiet and the noise of judgment faded. With each passage I read, the layers of deception I had been living under started to peel away. I stumbled upon the teachings of Jesus, and slowly, a new understanding emerged. Each verse illuminated the path toward truth, truth that resonated so deeply with the whispers of my heart. I sought out stories from others who had undergone similar experiences, connecting with those who understood the tension I faced. We shared not only our doubts, but also our revelations about the spiritual war that raged around us, a battle that few seemed willing to acknowledge. As I explored these newfound connections, I experienced a growing sense of peace. The more I immersed myself in this journey, the clearer it became that I had to embrace this truth, even if it meant losing everything I had known. The awakening I felt was invigorating, yet it came with a heavy heart. I grappled with the fear of losing my family and the standing I held within my community. Would they ever understand me? Would they ever accept the changes taking place within me? Those thoughts haunted me, fostering an urgency that pushed me to share my experiences, even at the risk of rejection. The revelations I encountered challenged everything I had been taught about faith and obedience. I realized that adherence to rigid traditions could sometimes serve as a distraction from the genuine connection with the divine. The hidden agendas of those in power, the elite who crafted narratives for their gain, became a clear part of the landscape I observed. I understood now how manipulation fostered division among the people, breeding conflict and suppressing the truth. My heart raced as I noted the urgency of these insights, compelling me to confront not just my fears but the systems that perpetuated deception in society. Each gathering with fellow seekers deepened my resolve. We formed a community that resonated with the awakening spirit, a band of individuals committed to illuminating the shadows cast by deception. Together we discussed the implications of our beliefs and the importance of pursuing truth in a world filled with chaos and manipulation. With every conversation, I felt the weight of my mission solidifying. I was no longer just navigating the complexities of my profession. I was engaging in a spiritual battle that demanded action. The desire to spread this awakening grew stronger, knowing that the power of truth could change lives. And as I embraced this calling, I could feel the stirrings of hope, not just for myself, but for a broader awakening among those ensnared in the dark. After that fateful encounter, I found myself grappling with an overwhelming sense of purpose. My name is Idris al-Mansour, and as a Muslim Crown Prosecutor, my life had revolved around the pursuit of justice within the confines of British law. I had spent years diligently climbing the ranks, navigating the complexities of the legal system with an unwavering commitment. Yet, despite my accomplishments, a void remained, a sense of disconnection between my professional life and the spiritual truths I had always sought to understand. After a moment of genuine prayer, I recognized that my experience had been nothing short of a divine calling. The moment I collapsed in the courtroom and found myself in the presence of Jesus changed everything. He called my name with a warmth that dispelled the cold doubts that had burdened my heart. In that profound encounter, I was shown revelations that illuminated the hidden agendas at play in our world, particularly those orchestrated by the elite who manipulate both faith and society for their gain. I witnessed how these deceptions fostered division among people, crafting narratives that kept us in chains of ignorance and fear. The urgency of his message lingered in my mind, compelling me to embrace this transformative experience and share it with others. As I began my journey of transformation, I felt the heavy responsibility of this calling. I knew I could no longer remain silent about the truths I had uncovered. The spiritual war around us was real, and being part of it required active engagement, not passive acceptance. Each prayer I offered became a direct line to my mission, and I felt called to break the silence surrounding my revelations. I realized that even if it came with risks, such as potential backlash from my community, I couldn't allow fear to dictate my actions. The truth held the power to liberate, and I was determined to share that liberation with others. Connecting with online Christian communities provided the support I desperately needed. In these spaces, I found others who understood the depth of my struggle and echoed my own awakening. We shared stories of the deception that had kept us trapped, how the spiritual war we fought intertwined with the challenges we faced in our daily lives. Each interaction reinforced my belief that we were not alone in this fight. I listened intently as they described their journeys and the peace they found in their connection with Jesus. As we exchanged experiences, the sense of urgency to speak out grew stronger, reminding me of the vast number of souls still caught in the cycle of disbelief and despair. Every time I prepared to share my story, the lingering fear of rejection threatened to resurface. What would my family think? Would they understand the radical shift that had taken place within me? Even as these thoughts battled for space in my mind, I couldn't ignore the weight of my mission. I understood that my goal was not merely to advocate for change, but to inspire others to look beyond the hidden agendas that shape our reality. There was profound truth in the journey of awakening, and I felt propelled to act, unearthing the darkness that obscured our vision and guiding others toward the light that had so dramatically shifted my own path. With each passing day, I became more committed to this mission. I sought to evangelize for the truth, to challenge the deceptions that had kept my community in fear. I envisioned a future where people could unite, transcending the divisions that had held them captive. As I prepared to step into this bold new chapter of my life, I could feel the energy of change surging within me. The call to awaken others echoed like a symphony in my heart, igniting a fire that refused to be extinguished. I stood on the precipice of a journey that promised both challenge and fulfillment, eager to plunge into the spiritual war that lay ahead, ready to witness the transformative power of truth in action. I'll never forget the moment I decided to leave everything behind. My name is Idris Al-Mansour, a Crown Prosecutor, and for years I had lived life by the expectations placed upon me by family, society, and faith. But inside, I was suffocating. The pressure to conform to the rigid structures of my life weighed heavily on my spirit. And after my experience with Jesus, I realized that I could no longer ignore the profound call to change. Each day felt like a battle of sorts, fighting against the rising tide of skepticism and self-doubt while yearning for a deeper connection with the truth. When I made the choice to adopt a new identity and leave my home, it felt like stepping out of darkness and into the light. The night was quiet as I traversed the streets of London, and with each step I felt a mixture of fear and exhilaration. This journey promised unparalleled freedom, a liberation from the shackles of expectation and judgment. It was an act of brave defiance against the deception that had lulled me into complacency. I couldn't shake the feeling that the spiritual war one had unwittingly been part of was now calling me to arms, urging me to fight not just for myself but for others still caught in the web of manipulation. As I delved deeper into my exploration of faith, the truths I uncovered solidified my mission of evangelism. I sought out resources, explored the Bible more thoroughly, and connected with others who had experienced similar awakenings. Each encounter offered a unique piece to the puzzle, revealing how the hidden agendas of the elite manipulate society to keep us fragmented and fearful. I could see how their strategies obscured the truth, crafting narratives that perpetuated division across cultures and communities. I began to understand the urgency of sharing these revelations, knowing that each person I encountered could potentially join the fight against this spiritual deception. Even amidst the excitement of my new path, the fear of losing my family and community lingered as a constant reminder of the sacrifices I had made. In their eyes, I was a pariah, a betrayer of our traditions. The thought of standing before them, sharing my journey, and revealing the truths I had learned was daunting. Yet the peace I felt in my newfound understanding outweighed that fear. I recognized that while they may reject my beliefs, the truths I had encountered through Jesus' teachings could inspire others to awaken. I was determined to advocate for those who felt lost, just as I once did. Night after night, I committed myself to this mission, feeling the urgency of the spiritual war continuing on both personal and societal fronts. I spoke at gatherings, shared my testimony, and regularly engaged with individuals searching for their own truths. Each response, whether positive or negative, only fueled my resolve. It became clear that my journey was about more than personal liberation. It was about assembling a coalition of seekers ready to confront deception and embrace the truth. My identity had shifted, and I was ready to embrace my purpose, understanding that the path ahead may not always be easy, but it was one filled with profound significance. With every step, the promise of awakening sprang to life, driving me forward into the unknown. Years after my transformative experience, I find myself in a new country, living a life dedicated to sharing the truths I've come to understand. My name is Idris Al-Mansour, and I'm no longer just a Crown Prosecutor. I've embraced the role of a missionary, actively engaging with communities in a way that brings the light of Jesus to those still searching for their paths. It hasn't been an easy journey, but with each person I witness awakening, I feel the profound nature of my calling. My mission is fueled by the revelation of the spiritual war that permeates our lives. A battle not only for individual souls, but for the very fabric of society. In this new environment, I often reflect on the hidden agendas that have shaped much of culture and belief back home. The elite forces that manipulate narratives and perpetuate deception to maintain control over the masses. When I first arrived, these truths weighed heavily on my heart. I knew that these were the same forces I had fought against in my previous life, but here, the faces were different, and the struggles manifested in unique ways. I engaged with individuals from diverse backgrounds, each carrying their own burdens and stories marked by suffering and confusion. It was during these interactions that I realized the messages of liberation I had received from Jesus were universal. Sharing my testimony became an act of courage and vulnerability. I often found myself in community centers, speaking to those eager to hear about my journey. I recounted my near-death experience and how Jesus called me to awaken to deeper truths. I spoke of the urgency to confront the deception that keeps us entrenched in a cycle of fear and division. As I shared, the faces in the crowd would light up with recognition, and I could feel the energy shift, the collective awakening taking root in their hearts. The realization that we are all in this spiritual war together, united by the same desire for truth, was a powerful moment for both them and me. Despite the fulfillment I felt in this new purpose, the absence of my family haunted me. I often pray for reconciliation, for understanding to take root in their hearts, and I dream of a future where I can bridge the cultures I hold dear. The tension of my past still lingers, but the strength I've gained through this journey has fortified my resolve. I know that if I can inspire even one person to seek their own truth, to awaken to the possibility of liberation, then my efforts are worth it. It's this hope that fuels my prayers and drives my interactions. Each day is a new opportunity to live out this mission, and while the road is fraught with challenges, I feel the presence of Jesus guiding me. His love and acceptance empower me to boldly address the complexities of life, the fights against the hidden agendas that seek to disrupt peace and harmony. I've learned to embrace the discomfort of vulnerability, allowing it to transform into strength. The spiritual war is real, and it calls for warriors willing to stand for truth and justice. With each story shared, each heart touched, I witnessed the awakening unfold, not just within myself, but in the lives of others around me. As I continue this journey, I realize that each revelation leads me closer to bridging that gap between my past and present, paving a path not just for me but for many who are yearning for the truth. When I collapsed in the courtroom, surrounded by the weight of deliberation and expectation, I felt a shift I could never have anticipated. My name is Idris al-Mansour, and as a Crown Prosecutor, I had spent years defending the law, my life a cascade of legal arguments and moral duties. But beneath that disciplined exterior lingered a profound emptiness, a disconnection from my faith as a Muslim that left me feeling lost. That day would change everything. In a moment that should have been routine, I found myself spiraling into darkness, leaving behind the confines of my reality and thrusting into an encounter that would reshape my very essence. In that darkness, there was a sudden illumination. I was met with the radiant presence of Jesus, who called my name with a familiarity that shook me to my core. The warmth of his light enveloped me, and in that moment, I felt an extraordinary love that transcended anything I had ever known. It was as if every doubt, fear, and insecurity was washed away. In that sacred space, he began to reveal truths that shattered the illusions I had carried. I saw the hidden agendas of the elite, how they manipulate not just politics but the fabric of human connection, weaving a tapestry of deception designed to divide us. This awakening ignited a fire within me, compelling me to confront the truths that had been obscured for too long. The revelations were staggering. Jesus unveiled the spiritual war that raged not only in the world but within each of us. I began to see how the lies we accept as normal create barriers between us, fostering anger and hostility rather than understanding. I witnessed how technology has been twisted into a tool for manipulation, used by those in power to distract and control. Each insight was a clarion call, pressing upon me a duty to awaken to my own responsibility in fighting this war against deception. The urgency of these messages settled over me like a mantle, and I knew I could no longer stand on the sidelines. As I returned to consciousness in the courtroom, the chaos surrounding me felt amplified, yet I was transformed. I could see faces in the jury, hear the murmurs of discontent, but I felt elevated above it all. The world was now suffused with meaning, but the pangs of loss for my former life clawed at my heart. I now had a mission, a purpose that mattered not just for me but for others still trapped in confusion and fear. My faith had become a source of strength rather than a constraint, and I felt a profound need to speak out, despite the risks that lay ahead. In the days that followed, I began my journey to share the truths I had learned. It was deeply frightening to confront the potential backlash from my family and colleagues, but the call to action from Jesus was unmistakable. I sought out online communities and began connecting with others who had faced similar transformations. Together we forged a bond of understanding, each of us driven by a fierce desire to expose the deceptions that kept so many shackled. I learned that sharing these experiences not only fostered individual awakenings but also built a collective strength, a united front against a spiritual war that demanded our attention. With every story exchanged and every heart touched, I felt hope blooming in the darkness, pushing me to continue this vital mission toward truth and awakening. Now that you've walked alongside me through this journey of awakening, I implore you to reflect deeply. Have you ever felt an invisible thread pulling at the core of your being, urging you toward a truth you've yet to fully understand? In a world drenched in confusion and deception, the strands of our reality are often woven by unseen forces that seek to keep us blind to our true potential. I was called from the shadows of my old life, woken up by the radiant love of Jesus, who shattered the chains that bound my spirit. What I experienced is not just my truth, it's a clarion call to each of you. We are in the midst of a spiritual battle, and every one of us plays a part, whether we choose to acknowledge it or not. The question is, will you answer the call? Will you awaken to the greater truths that lie beneath the surface of your faith, your beliefs, and your understanding of the world around you? Your voice matters. I invite you to share your thoughts, experiences, and any insights you've gleaned in the comments below. Together, through our shared stories, we can illuminate the darkness and cultivate a collective awakening. And if this message ignited something within you, please don't leave without hitting subscribe to Truth from Beyond and activating notifications. Your engagement is vital as we unravel the lies that bind us and uncover the profound truths waiting to be revealed. In our next video, we'll explore another transformative testimony, one that highlights the healing power of faith amid despair. Stay tuned, you won't want to miss it. I'm Idris, and I'm grateful for every moment you've shared with me today. Remember, when we seek the truth together, we arm ourselves against the deceptions of this world. Always stay curious and keep searching for the light.